Vice Chancellor Somaiya Vidya University, Mumbai, to address the gathering.
Good morning all. I welcome His Excellency Thiru R.N. Ravi, Honorable Governor of Tamil Nadu and VC of CSJM University, Kanpur, Professor V.N. Rajashekaran Pillai, Vice President of IAIU and Vice Chancellor of Somaiya Vidya University, Mumbai, of knowledge, but the process of uncovering the innate potential, strength and the virtues within each individual. Given that in this era of dynamic global challenges and opportunities,
Dr. Kinsha, other Vice Chancellors from Tamil Nadu,
our societies has never been more critical. And assessment and evaluation serve as the cornerstones of academic excellence, fostering accountability, innovation, and holistic development for the institution, students, and all. This conclave is thus an opportunity for us to exchange ideas.
Thank you, Sir Zimanush.
For the new year, a very happy Pongal and the auspicious day today, Vaikunt Ekadasi. I'd like to thank Dr. Viswanathan for making this beautiful and intellectually vibrant campus for this event. This institution has grown. We heard from the Chancellor how from the modest beginning it has emerged as a model for higher educational institutions. Association of Indian Universities, we know it is the next body of universities in terms of number of universities, nearly 1,100, almost all the universities of this country are a member of it. The fact that for nearly a century, this association has been steering the course of higher education in our country through their collective wisdom, which has gone into shaping the policies, education policies of the state and central government, as well as other institutions, educational institutions. The fact that this association is in the centenary of its long journey, it makes it all the more important because this is a landmark. And this conference will deliberate and contribute to the future journey, not of this association alone, but of higher educational institutions in the country. Friends, new education policy has given us the policy as well as a broad roadmap. for transformation of our education system, including the higher education system. We know that we are moving away from the traditional education system, which emphasized largely on memorizing, rote learning, and examination once in a year, or whatever be the period, once in a while, assessing the student's merit. From this, we are moving to what we call experiential learning. So, the learning and teaching is moving from the traditional to the more contemporary and modern, which is the need of the hour. You know, there are not many questions that come to the mind and is confronting all of you, all of us. And perhaps the number of questions are so many that encapsulating them all in a nutshell would be a difficult proposition. But the fact remains that we have to transform, we have to change. And the change for the better, change to make this country better, change to make this world better, change so that this country, the great country, fulfills her destiny for the mankind. You know, we have been talking considerably about methods, new methods of teaching and learning. And experiential learning. It's not easy to transform because for a long time, ever since the British colonized us, we lost our indigenous system of teaching and learning. There's Professor Vinay Kumar Patilji mentioned about Bengal, Calcutta Presidency report. It's not only Calcutta Presidency, but all the three presidency reports on education, if you read, which was at the beginning of the 19th century. It tells you about the status of education in Bharat. And the reason why all the three presidencies embarked on a study of the Indian system of education was the fact that the British and European educationists, intellectuals, professors, they were overwhelmed by the corpus of knowledge, the system of knowledge production, the system of transforming that knowledge into products. It was so robust that this country, Bharat, was the supplier to the market of the world. If you have read, and I'm sure many of you have read, the CED report on the status of this global economy, the world economy, a millennial perspective. It tells you that until in the 18th century, this country, Bharat, was the economic driver of the world, or the engine of world economy. Ours was the largest GDP. And it was not that it happened without a robust system of creation of knowledge and transformation of those knowledge into products. When we say that the world was our market, right from the Roman Empire in the west to the China in the east, this whole region, because at the time there was no United States of America, they were just coming up. North America, in fact, not only USA, but entire North America, Australia, these were all colonies, which were lands which were being colonized. So the Europe and Asia, these were the countries, these were the continents. And this country was the one which was invading the market, the global market. And when they came and studied our system, they impressed upon the British government to commission a detailed study of India's indigenous education system. In fact, if you read the report of the professor, not report but the letter of Professor Macaulay of Edinburgh. In fact, the Edinburgh at the time of the three British universities of UK. So the whole team of professors, right from 1760s, when the British first colonized this, began the colonization after the Battle of Plassey. When they came and they saw, they were overwhelmed. And then they wrote a letter. It was sent by Professor Macaulay of Edinburgh to the President of the Board of Control of the East India Company. And the President, Henry Dundas, was a leading politician member of the British Parliament. There he gets, he urges in his long letter that we must discover, collect, and translate the knowledge which is there in India, the wisdom of the ancient people. In fact, the word that he used was ancient Hindus. There he goes to say further that we must know about their science, their mathematics, which will enrich the European science and mathematics. We must know about their philosophy, the social philosophy, which will broaden the European system of thought. That was the time of European Renaissance, when intellectual renaissance was happening in Europe. What they call is the age of reason. At that point of time, when all the new ideas about the individual and the polity was coming up, they said that this will broaden the European system of thought. And then he says that this we must know. And I attempted to quote the line, and I'm quoting his word. I'm quoting his word, the words in the letter, where the letter says that we must know about the ancient Hindus from whom Moses received his learning. Moses was 1,000 years before Jesus Christ. And Greek, her art and her religion. Now, this was the status. And they came, and that letter prompted, when he passed on, Henry Dundas passed on to all the three governors, asking them to conduct a detailed survey of education and business education in this country. Madras Presidency report itself is very interesting. Madras President, at the time Bentinck was the governor, there were 16 districts in Madras Presidency, and every district collector gave a detailed report. Some of them is far exhausted. And reading this, you will start wondering, this is what we were and where we have come today. So, it is the colonization that introduced the system of rote learning. The critical thinking was not in the interest of empire. They wanted Indians to be just serving for the company or for the British government. So they systematically killed the indigenous education system and planted to a system of rote learning, passing an examination based on rote learning to serve their interest. A generation of Indians would not be critical in thinking and would always be in the awe of superiority of the European system of knowledge and Europeans. Friends, Dr. Viswanathan mentioned about how the state controlled education is a tyranny. It is. There is no doubt about it. Unfortunately, after we became independent, we followed a socialistic pattern of development. And we know that in a socialist society, a state controls everything, including the thought process. And this is what Sarvapalli Radhakrishna's report says. But this is what we followed. In this country, in Bharat, education has seldom, not to my knowledge, been a state, never been a state controlled. It has been a state patronized from time to time, but never a state controlled. Take the case of the greatest university of all time, Nalanda. Was it controlled by Mauryan of Gupta rulers? No, never. What they did, they made 1,000 villages around, gave the university as an endowment. That those villages will supply the necessary, whatever the other necessities of the student. These are elaborately recorded by one Sen in his memoir. That how they used to supply all the needs of the university, Nalanda University. This was endowment. It was never ever controlled. In the Gurukula system of education that we followed, first, a state of the king had no control over education. No control whatsoever. But then, we followed a pattern, continued the colonial system. In the time of colony, when Bharat was a colony, at the time it served the interest of the empire. And thereafter we followed a system, the same, that perhaps prevented critical thinking. In our education system, in Gurukula education system, it is never teaching and just rote learning. In fact, it is not merely learning. In fact, it's teaching, learning, and innovating. Innovation was a part of the system of education. You know, one of the greatest mathematicians of our time, Ramanujan, in his convocation address, one of the convocation address at BHE, Banaras Hindu University, in his address he talked about our education system. Of course, at the time it was a colonial system. He said, look, bookworms, they eat the book, but they only produce dust. We don't want our students to be bookworm, to just memorize and produce dust, useless. They must produce knowledge. Knowledge, learning of knowledge must produce more knowledge. And knowledge which are useful knowledge. This has been the tradition of this country. Unfortunately, we had lost the tradition for a long, long time. Now, we are trying to pivot back to our system of education in where teaching, learning is integrated with innovation, research and innovation. Friends, Dr. Viswanathan also mentioned about how in the year 2020 we had 22,000 patents, whereas China had more than over 5 lakhs and US has 3 lakhs. Yes, because we didn't emphasize on it. Thankfully now, the things are changing. In the last 4 years, in 2023, the report of WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization report, shows that we have 400% jump in our intellectual property. It is about almost 88,000 that we did in 2023. Yet still, we are way behind. Because still, 46% of the intellectual property that are created every year, at least it was created in 2023, was from China. 18% was from US. Needless to say, the quality of US intellectual properties were much superior. Nevertheless, the boom that China has created in creating intellectual property is manifesting in Chinese heft today. We, from less than 1%, we have just gone over 2% in the last 4 years. Nevertheless, it is a small step, nevertheless, it is a decisive step. We have to emphasize more and more on creating knowledge, creating intellectual property, because the world is driven more and more by knowledge, more so knowledge of technology. The way the Industrial Revolution brought about the differences in those who possessed the knowledge and technology and those who didn't, today's knowledge is widening the gap much more. Asymmetry is much better than what it was in the past. Today, when we are at the threshold of ultra-advanced technology, if I use the word ultra, with the generative artificial intelligence, advanced robotics, the nanoscience, nanotechnology, graduating and aspiring to go to the pico, 10 to the power minus 11 to the 10 to the power minus 12, going further to that scale. Nanorobotics, imagine, nanorobotics, invisible robotics, invisible to our senses, operational. AR and VR, in the age of 6G and perhaps the 7G, which could not be very far off. Enabled by these platforms, artificial reality and the virtual reality, clubbed with advanced robotics, nanotechnology, leading to nanorobotics and synthetic biology, synthesizing the gene and creating creatures. I think, friends, we are all staring at an unpredictable world, very discomforting if we are left behind. Because the asymmetry that it is creating, and asymmetry in not only knowledge, asymmetry in power and wealth. This asymmetry in power and wealth, if we do not appreciate and overcome it, it is a very scary scenario. So, we have to create knowledge, we have to create intellectual property. There has to be greater thrust on research and innovation. And when it comes to control over educational institutions, higher educational institutions especially, I think Prime Minister Modi has made it very clear. We need to appreciate that. We need to assimilate it. as our ancient system was, we have to liberate. We have to liberate the education system, our educational institutions from the control of the government. More and more have to be independent, more and more have to be autonomous. We heard about federal system and also how the US could be a model. But let us also not forget that US model in terms of technology could be today a model, but whether how sustainable that could be, whether we can have a better model. A model which is not controlled by the state, because in our country, knowledge institutions have always been sustained by the society, not by the state. The state had patronized, but largely by the society. How do we leverage that and translate it into the contemporary context? You know, we talk about federal system. Yes, US is a federal system. But let us also talk, when we put in our context, why is it that our state universities across the country I am saying, state universities, why are they lagging behind the private universities? If you look at the number of patents, various outcomes, you find state universities are not in a healthy state of affairs. They are not in a healthy situation. Why? Now, in fact, this federal or federalism notion must be clearly understood in the Indian context. In the Indian context, we must realize that our federalism is, first of all, our federalism is not American federalism. Our union is an organic union. In the USA, states got together and created the union. Here, the union existed even before the states came into being. States have been created. They are time to time. At the time of independence, we had 15 states. Today, we have states and 7 million territories. And there is no guarantee there will not be more states tomorrow. There will be. States will be created. But let us not get into the notion of federalism, US federalism. That is not our characteristic. We call about have unity in diversity. In fact, it itself has to be understood. It's not an intellectually fabricated unity. It is not that intellectually impressed unity. In fact, the Bharatiya system has been there. We have seen unity in diversity. Diversity exists. Diversity is there in every aspect of life. Look at a flower. Its numerous petals, no two petals are alike, but they are organically connected. Millions of leaves of a tree. Each leaf is different. If you look at the tree from the perspective of leaf, no, that's not the way. It is indifferent. Bharatiya system, which has been an integrated system. It has always looked at diversity as a beauty, as a celebration, not as a difference. It is the colonized thinking that has brought to a stage when we are trying to say that we must celebrate unity in diversity without understanding what this unity is about. It is not that unity is fabricated, unity exists. That existence of unity is to be appreciated and celebrated. Friends, we have to grow and we have to leapfrog in our growth, in our knowledge, especially in the field of technology. We are doing it, as I mentioned, that there is a greater thrust on research and innovation, there is need for greater resources. I fully agree with that, there cannot be any compromise because this is what will shape us. You all, the leaders of your own respective institutions, seeing the destiny of lakhs of students, each one of you, each one of your institution, you are actually shaping the destiny of this country. It's very important that each of these institutions will invest considerably in research and innovation. So, from the teaching, learning, we have to incorporate as a part of that innovation and research as well, in same breath. Now, students to learn, students to have more practical knowledge, more project-based knowledge. What about teachers? Should they not? In our ancient system, in our Indian system of education, the teachers and students both kept learning from each other. It was a continuous dialectics between the teacher, the guru and the shishya, the teacher and the taught, that led to the evolution, further synthesis of knowledge and growth. So even the teachers must continue to have the spirit of a student. It is necessary. It is not enough to just talk about the students. We must introspect and see that even teachers must. And how do they do that? We have to create, I'm sure, the sessions of 2 days, you will be deliberating over this NAIU, which has been the thought leader in the system, in the entire process, would be deliberating over it. You are envisioning the future higher education. Future higher education and the pivotal role of India. In that context, we have come to the sub-theme. When we talk about the pivotal role of India, how India can pivot the higher education. One, of course, we have to place greater thrust on innovation and research. A student and teachers must be in the constant mode of evolution, learning and innovating. There should be assessment also for the teachers, not for the sake of producing papers, because I have seen in our state we produce over 6,500 PhDs from the state universities alone. I am not talking about the quality of those PhDs, lesser the better. They must be worthwhile. There must be an assessment that when somebody does the PhD, somebody does the research, is this research something which is contributing to the corpus of knowledge, genuinely contributing to the corpus of knowledge? We need to think about it. So this has to go on and we must step on. But there is another aspect also. Friends, we are talking about the future of, or rather the future higher education, not future of, but future higher education. You know, it has to be sustainable. We know that even the Western system of education, while in terms of science and technology they have gone ahead, and we must leapfrog and be at the front. We are happy because our potential capacity is no less. Our latent capacity is less than none, which is now manifesting day to day in the number of research papers, number of intellectual properties being created, number of innovations, the startup. The very fact that the growth, we are the fastest growing economy, is not because of the major huge industries, but because development is happening, the growth happening at the MSME sector, micro, small and medium sector. They are the engines of our growth. All these are happening. And we must leapfrog in all these areas of whether it is artificial intelligence, whether it's synthetic biology, whether it's advanced robotics, whether nanotechnology. But there is another aspect to it also. Because this advancement in science and technology has brought us to a stage where the world is staring at a very serious problem of existence. Inequality, growing inequality. On the one hand, you have filthy affluence, waste, so much of waste created day to day. On the other hand, we have a starvation. we have people who are nowhere in the reckoning. Continents which are not in the reckoning. Mass of humanity. The conflict among the people, among the countries, we are all witnessing. Overall accumulation of weapons of mass destruction to multiple countries, multiple hands, each. We are all experiencing it. This world that is not sustainable, if the present drift of our evolution and growth continues on the Western model, it is not sustainable. Why is it that we are moving towards that with so much of technology and science and prosperity in some part of the world? And here comes again the Indian knowledge. What is the Bharatiya Drishti? The way we look at things. Bharatiya Drishti, the vision. You know, today when we are talking about all this mode of a growth that produces so much of waste, we produce something today with its life for about a year. The next year a new model comes and this becomes useless, you cannot even go for repair. It has have to throw it. This is not a sustainable. Long back, I'm sure many of you have read it. American Association for Advancement of Science in December 1966, Lynn White Jr. had delivered a talk which subsequently published in the journal Science. Historical roots of our ecological crisis. Historical roots of our ecological crisis. At the time, ecological crisis was not something that people were talking about much. It was not yet in mainstream narrative. But yet there were people who could foresee the change that is going to happen, the crisis that the world is going to face, and they sounded the alarm bell. Put this squarely on the anthropocentric view of life. A view of life that humans are at the center of creation, and the rest of creation is for your pleasure, you enjoy it, you exploit it. And that is leading to where we are reached. And the second was the report of Club of Rome in 1972. Club of Rome, which published something significant to contribute to make it sustainable. This is Bharatiya Drishti. In Bharatiya Drishti, Vyakti, individual, Samashti, which is the society, Srishti, which is the creation, and Parameshti is the creator. They are all integrally connected. In the Western view of economy and life, individual is sovereign. And that goes into shaping the polity and political structure. And this has led to where we are today. Connection between individual, the larger self-society, creation, and the creator. Vyakti, Samashti, Srishti, and Parameshti. This integral connect. This, which was the Indian way of looking at it, Bharatiya way of life and knowledge. This has to be appreciated. This needs a lot of research today. We need to create corpus of literature, modern literature, wherein you have to bring about a paradigm shift in the thought process, which emerged at the time of what European Renaissance